Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to Unity of Kern County on this 18th day of October 2020. I'm Reverend Chuck, and today we continue our series based upon Unity Minister Jim Rosemergy's book, A Daily Guide to Spiritual Living. And of course, Jen gives us insights and ideas for dealing with the many issues we face with ego's control of the human condition. And of course, if you have a question at any time about anything that we are discussing, please contact me via the messenger on Facebook or my email at revchuckunity@yahoo.com. That's revchuckunity@yahoo.com. And of course, as we do each Sunday, we open with affirming that presence of God that is always with us with the Charles Fillmore prayer. Together. I'm now in the presence of pure being and immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. In your divine wisdom, now erase my mortal imitations, and from your pure substance of love, bring into manifestation my world according to your perfect law. And so it is. Amen. Now, last week, I shared about our power and our ability to make choices that encourage us to create those changes that we need for our spiritual growth and evolution. So that leaves us with a question when it comes to making the choices. Am I willing to change? Am I? Well, my answer has always been yes. Yeah, there are times that I fought it, but ultimately, I came to the decision that it was the right course of action to take. You know, Jim writes, and he tells us that when you acknowledge the power of choice, you invite change. Know that change is the only constant of your spiritual journey. God and your spiritual essence, the Christ within you, your hope of glory, are changeless. All of creation is in a state of change, of evolving. Everything is either growing or deteriorating. Change is somewhat what we cannot control, for it is our destiny. We can choose not to grow, though, and then experience that form of change we call deterioration. Or we can turn to the transformation of new ideas and new choices, new concepts, and become part of God's eternal plan for all life. Change, writes Jim, is a call for faith, for only in faith can we face the unknown. Change brings us face to face with that which is uncertain or mysterious. Even when we sense a greater good, there is often trepidation, for we know not what lies ahead. The fear of unknown, the fear of change, is rooted in the collective consciousness of the human condition. Now, this is where ego does its most, for it loves to use fear to keep humanity in bondage to outdated beliefs and concepts, behaviors that don't allow for new growth and expansion. Ego uses fear, the false evidence appearing real, in our lives to keep us believing change equals death to the old way of doing things. You know, we all need to look around us, and that's all we need to do to see that how fear is being played out in our lives on this very moment in time. Fear of disease, fear of people in power, fear of our neighbors, fear of authority figures, fear of losing what we once had, fear of never loving anyone in our life again, or fear of our future. I'm sure that you can come up with some fears of your own, during this time. Now, it's true that some fears are real, the ones that cause us to be safe. You see a snake on the road and you're going to move away. A bear comes in your direction, you move away. Yes, there are certain fears that keep us safe. Other fears, though, are fragments of our imagination created by ego that would keep us from thinking for ourselves. And so here are a couple of examples of how ego uses fear, that false evidence appearing real, to create the roadblocks on our spiritual path. One of them, You must keep your old attitude and beliefs and never give in to new ideas for doing something different. So resist all change. 2. Keep using statements, I can't, and yes, but, as excuses for not accepting the changes in your life. If you make these changes and you fail, you'll never amount to anything. Number 3. And number 4, if you lose control, others will dominate you. You'll be a victim for the rest of your life. Ego loves to use these examples to keep you in bondage to outdated ideas and concepts that cause you never to look forward to what possibilities are for you if you would only change. It's just an example of how ego holds us back. We've all heard this statement from President Roosevelt at the beginning of World War II when he addressed Congress, and he said that the only thing you have to fear is fear itself. But a century earlier, Henry David Thoreau wrote, "Nothing is so much to be feared as fear." Now the world is changing. It is at war with a virus that we do not understand, at war with something that threatens our future. And as we know, all kinds of war changes things. So today, the world is in the grips of change. Change in how we live and interact and travel, congregate, shop, learn, meet, work, play. Each of us has been affected by these changes firsthand. I've seen people that live in fear, and others who are fiercely reckless, and others who refuse to let fear dictate their actions by removing all common sense. Now, many people trust science and take the necessary precautions to stay safe and stay well. And then we have those that are ego-driven. They have front row seats to ego's work and fear. And they're the ones that cause most of the problems in our lives because they're not willing to change. It's been said that public speaking is the number one fear that people have. Well, I've been a public speaker most of my life, and fear has never been an issue for me. Anxiousness, yes. I'm anxious when I get in front of a group of people that I've never spoken to before. But this is what I tell myself to honor that anxiousness and to put any type of fear that ego might put in my way to the sidelines. Only I know what I'm going to say. I have the script, so they won't ever know if I made a mistake or not. This is what Jim had to say about change. Change that asks to let us go we think we are, so we can discover who we are by affirming, not only am I willing to change, I'm willing to adhere to change's commandment, to let go and embrace the transformed me. As St. Paul told the Romans, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Be transformed by the renewal of your mind. The human condition is filled with all sorts of toxic fears that have become part of how we deal with life's issues and the changes that we face. We have created stories around our fears so that we don't have to deal with making the choices we need to make in order to initiate that change. Making those stories real with how we see ourselves and how we view our relationship with others is paramount in the outcome of all change in our life. Everyone has a story about the changes in their lives. And with each story, one stands out as a fundamental activity that is needed to be made to happen, and that is the activity of responsibility. Responsibility for our actions regards to changes that are going on around us. You cannot change the circumstances or the seasons, as they say, or the wind. You can only change yourself. It's been said that, of course, there are always two sides to every story. In this case, there are two sides to our story about fear. and how we deal with change. And we see this in how people approach change in their life. They can face it either through the spirit-centered prayer or ego-centered prayer. And it goes like this. Spirit-centered prayer is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Ego-centered prayer goes like this. God, give me the wisdom to know who needs changing, and the courage to change them, and the power to make their life a living hell for those jerks who I cannot change. Sound familiar? You ever run into anyone like that? I have. Ego is always at play. Now, several years ago, I gave a lesson on the challenge of change and what we have to do to embrace the changes we face on a daily basis. So here are a few tips that I would like to share with you. To make a change in how you react to those who tend to challenge you and the way you think, act, or feel, tell yourself, what you think of me is none of my business, for I'm doing just great. What you think of me is none of my business, for I'm doing just great. And you are, as long as you remember that no one can control you unless you let them. What about if you constantly are getting upset with people on the road by the way they drive? Well, here's a reminder too. They can't hear you, so you can swear and holler and gripe all you want. They are not going to hear you. And all that does is upset, adds more stress and discord to your body. So tell yourself that health and well-being is more important than yelling at the driver in front of you. Well, what if you're looking to change a relationship that's gone sour? Try looking at it from the other person's point of view, and it might take some time to do that. But once you've been able to do that and maybe see some insight into what went wrong and what can be corrected and apologies that can be made, write or send a card, text or call. Have the courage to take the first step to reconnect. And what if change involves trusting yourself to make that right decision? Well, it's learning to trust your intuition and follow the guidance that it has given you. There is power in that little statement, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. And then listen to that still small voice within you and tell ego to take a hike. And what if change involves you creating, say, more time for yourself if you happen to be a workaholic? Well, try giving yourself permission to let the creative aspect of who you are flow, no matter what others may think. Take time for yourself and do the things that you need to do to bring back balance. You know, change comes to us all. It is our power of choice that determines how we're going to react and to use that activity of change in our lives. You know, as someone once said, you cannot change the direction of the wind, but you can adjust your sails to reach your destination. And so next week, may the winds of change blow gently against your sails. Then join me as we see how our choices give us the gift of a do-over. Wouldn't that be nice? A do-over. Well, I want to thank all of you for following me on Facebook and on YouTube, and of course for the financial support that keeps Unity of Kern County and this ministry active. So until next Sunday, have a great week and be good to yourself and others. God bless you, dear friends.